I am so excited to show you how to make this hand-painted floral tumbler. If you're new here, my name is Allison and I teach you every single week how to make tumblers, do sublimation crafts, or learn how to use your Cricut. So if that sounds cool to you, make sure you are subscribed and let's get started. We're gonna start by glittering the tumbler. Of course, this comes after you prep and base coat. And for this particular glitter, I chose a sort of light brown tan color. I'm using the CrystaLac glitter glue to apply my glitter. Brush it on a good amount, but make sure you can fully brush it out smooth so there aren't any lines or bigger clumps of glue. Otherwise, you're not going to get flat glitter. And then you're going to sprinkle on the glitter. This is Jewels from Glitter Dip Sips, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's obviously this kind of gold color, but has these purple hues that I highly recommend. So you're going to sprinkle this on and let it dry completely for 2 hours, and then you'll continue on with the process to get this fully and completely smooth. After 2 hours, you will dry brush any excess glitter, then you're going to seal it with your glitter glue, and then you're going to continue doing your coats of grand finale, every 2 hours, sanding, all that stuff. So you have a very smooth, completely smooth surface before you start painting. If you want more of the breakdown on how exactly to get a smooth tumbler or glitter a tumbler, I have resources linked below underneath this video. After that, it is time to actually paint the flowers. Again, you need a completely smooth surface. You can use any combination of the CrystaLac pigments or the Flippin' Awesome paints, which is sort of what I started with on this live stream. You can go back and watch it if you want to see this and the decision making in real time. But I thought that the spicy mustard Flippin' Awesome paint was a great base kind of starting point for the sunflowers and the moss green as well. I ended up sort of changing up the colors a little bit, which that's what I like about doing it this way, is that you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of different ways to customize the exact colors that you want to use. So I started with this spicy mustard that really is a little bit too mustard for my liking. Like, I don't love it alone, but it was a good place to start. So I started mixing it with the universal white to lighten it up a little bit. And I even added in a little bit of red pigment just to get this to the perfect color that I wanted. Something to keep in mind is that it will dry 2 shades darker than what you're seeing in your mixing cup. So I started with the spicy mustard and the universal white to lighten it up, and I felt like it needed a little bit of red pigment. I just want to remind you to be careful with the red pigment because it is very, very strong, and you really only need a very little bit, like a teeny tiny little drop. Anything more than that is going to really just take it too far in the red direction. So once I stirred this up, I thought that this was the absolute perfect color. And I decided to start painting. You want to use any paintbrush is fine, but you want like a sturdy bristle, and you want it to be pretty thin, especially on a tumbler. It is actually a pretty small canvas, so you want to use a small bristled brush. Now, I am not a professional painter. I talk about that in my live stream. I really wanted to try this for so long just to see sort of, one, how to do it, if I could do it, and I decided that I can't get better at painting unless I actually paint. So I started by doing the petals for the sunflower. I sort of drew a circle to use as a guide. I wanted to start with one kind of like big sunflower and then fill in the rest of the tumbler with smaller ones. At the same time I was doing my tumblers, I really wanted to mix up a second color to provide a little bit of dimension. So I actually ended up mixing that sort of like salmon-y color because I put too much red in it. But then I added that to the yellow that I was using to darken it just a little bit. And then as I was painting, I used that sort of salmon color in each petal to give a little bit of dimension. I highly recommend that whatever type of flower that you're doing or whatever painting that you're doing, you also have that second color. For the middle portion of the sunflower, I didn't want it to be completely black, so I mixed a little bit of the universal black with some universal white to lighten it up, and gray and the brown pigment from the CrystaLac Company to make sort of just a dark brown. And that's what I used for the center of my sunflowers. It dries a little bit darker than what you see on the screen, and it was really perfect for these flowers. Again, anything is fine. It doesn't have to be exact color match. you know, you can always apply a different coat. You can try again if you don't like the original color. So here you can see me putting that sort of salmon darker color in each of the petals just to create a little bit of dimension in each one. You're going to want to let these flowers dry for 2 hours, and you'll notice that you will need a second coat. It does dry a little bit translucent, so if you really want full vibrant colors, plan on letting it dry for 2 hours and going in with a second coat. So you can see I just filled in and did the exact same process for a bunch more flowers all around the tumbler. You would use this same process really for any type of flower that you're trying to create. So I also wanted to add in some leaves, in which I started with the moss green. And in my live stream, I couldn't decide if I liked the moss green as it was or if it was a little bit too light. So I decided to mix up some other colors to make a darker version to see which one I liked better. So to do that, I started with some moss green. I added some of the green pigment from the CrystaLac Company, and I also added in some of that brown paint that I had already made to just kind of darken it up and change that color a little bit. So you can kind of see this side by side, how I made it a little bit more of like a foresty green versus that moss green. And that really worked out for my leaves on the tumbler, but depending on the yellow that you mix up, you might want to change the green to just kind of match the vibe of the overall tumbler. So remember, you're going to need to let your first coat dry and do a second coat. Again, I'm going in with the yellow and adding a little bit of that salmon color to give it dimension. You'll also see that I have like my normal first layer of petals, but then a few I did try to do like a second layer behind. So like right here I have that little triangle. So once that's dry and your second coat's dry, I added in some leaves. I basically said I'm going to do like 2 sort of bigger leaves behind each sunflower. And you'll really kind of see it better once I start the detailing later. But those are the 2 types of leaves that I did. And you want to make sure that that yellow paint or the original paint is fully dry. Otherwise, you're going to get all sorts of color mixing. Then I also wanted to add in like one sort of different type of leaves with like different, like smaller and whatever. It's not my favorite. I wish I would have used even smaller paintbrush, but it all worked out in the end. So let that completely dry, and then you're going to add your grand finale. Again, here on this channel, I am epoxy free. I use CrystaLac's grand finale. If you want to learn more about that, I have hundreds of videos here for you. But I added like 2 or 3 coats of this grand finale before I went in to do all of the little details. And to do that, you need a pen. And you need a waterproof pen. So this is a Posca pen that I got on Amazon, 0.7 millimeters, I believe. And this worked really great. I have thicker like Arteza markers and other things that you could use, but I really needed a very small detailing pen. To use the pen, you have to shake it up and sort of like press it down to get the ink flowing. And I went in and traced every petal and the back petals all around the tumbler. The good news is that if you mess it up, you can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a paper towel and wipe it away as you just saw me do. So this really brought the whole design together, brought all of the sunflowers together. I'm not worried about it being perfect either. I'm doing like the best I can, but I really like the look when it's just sort of like a traced look and you can tell it's not absolutely perfect. I really like how it came together. I did the same thing tracing each of the leaves, and just remember that if you touch the wet pen with your hands, it will smear. So just be careful as you're going through the process. Again, this rubbing alcohol will take it off and you can fix it, but you just want to, try not to touch the wet marker if possible. I thought it wasn't quite enough just tracing the outside, so I kind of went in and made these little detailed lines on each petal and like 2 lines on each leaf, and I thought it really took the design up just another level. Again, it's not perfect, but I really think it looks a lot better with the detailing in inside each petal and on each leaves. I'm literally drawing just like 2 little lines in each one. Here's me zoomed in so you can see those details a little bit better. This one that I did was tough, and I wish the paint was a little bit thinner. I used a thinner paintbrush, but I liked having the variation of a different type of green on that tumbler. Once I did this, I let it dry overnight. I did put a little details in each leaf as well on these, and I let it dry overnight before I finished up this tumbler. Here it looks before anything on top. But once it was dry, I just went in with a few more coats of Grand Finale. I think I did maybe 4 coats on top of the paint, just so I had enough to get that really, really good shine. So I, again, use my hand to apply Grand Finale. I do about 4 additional coats, waiting 2 hours in between each coat, and it gets really, really shiny once it is dry. 2 coats probably isn't enough. You just need a few to make it extra shiny. So you can see here how it all came together. I think this glitter and this color paint works really well. It's a perfect tumbler for fall coming on the way with all of the sunflowers. If you want to learn more about using Grand Finale for your tumblers, I'm going to put a video up on your screen.